in between sets with Adrian from Alpha Neon. How you doing?
Hey mate, how are you? How are we getting on?
I'm very well, thank you. How's life?
Yeah, it's alright. Same shit, different day, but at least it's consistent shit, so I can't really complain.
Yeah. Um, do you remember when we met at the Fit Expo?
Yes, I do actually. Yeah,
So,
it was a while ago.
I wanted
About
to.
20. Go on, fire ahead.
Yeah, no, we did the Fit Expo 2021 and 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember bumping into you, and you were telling me about um, how you had your own gym and you basically designed your own kit.
Yeah, I designed some of it.
Um,
Yeah, not all of it, but yeah, some of it. Yeah,
some of it, but
mainly. So I'll rephrase that. I more made up the angles. So basically, I got a guy who like did a lot of fabrication work and then just built it. Because I think the problem is sometimes too many cooks spoil the broth, i.e., some of them don't train and they just work on angles and think, oh, well, that should be it. And I think if you don't train and you're making equipment, I think it's a really bad place to be. And I've seen some companies do that, and some bits of kit have come out amazing, other bits haven't. So I've always been of the adage, especially to like a plate loaded thing, the least amount of plates I can add and make that heavy through the whole range of motion for me is the best way of making a piece of kit. Because I think some people make kit and it's almost like an ego exercise of putting on 15 plates aside and moving that 2 inches, and then halfway through the movement it's helping them out rather than doing that because the fulcrum is too low or too high, etc., etc. And yeah, that's just not for me a piece of kit. So yeah, I remember, I vaguely remember, I remember bumping into because I never forget a face. I forget names. I'm fucking terrible at that. That's why a lot of times I go, "Hey mate, how are
me
you?"
too.
which is great. Or I go to a woman, "How are you, hon? How's it going?" So yeah, that's I'm terrible at names, but I used to run a lot of nightclubs and titty bars and stuff, so I'm tended to have to be good at remembering faces for obvious reasons, or breasts.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay,
edit
so
that.
we'll go. We'll segue from that then. How did you get from nightclubs and nightclubs and strip joints to supplements and gyms? So tell me what you were doing before Alpha Neon, please, and how you got into setting up Alpha Neon.
Well, I guess I left home around 17ish. Um, I think I moved in with my girlfriend then at the time. We kind of, I wouldn't say we absconded from home, but we just left and kind of set up our own lives, I guess. And I believe, let me think. Fuck me, it's a long. I'm an old guy, so I believe I started doing sports and recreation studies and business studies just because I didn't really know what to do. And after doing that, then at the time I was always doing door work from an early age, just because I was pretty good at boxing and I had my so I suppose to caveat that my father is in the Irish Hall of Fame for boxing. He had 202 fights and lost one, I believe, and has a couple of All Ireland titles. And a lot of my uncles are in the Irish Hall of Fame for boxing. So I grew up around that life,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed boxing. I was pretty good at it up until I was about 12 or 13, and then my balls dropped and my eyesight went to shit in a handbag. So I had to slowly move away from that because fair enough, if I hit someone I'd knock them out usually, but you had to fucking see them to hit them, so that was the problem. And I didn't mind taking a punch. As you can see, this face has taken several over the years and it hasn't done fuck all to me, thank God. But yeah, it kind of, I took a step back because at the time, look, I'm in my 40s, so back then you couldn't get like contact lenses, you couldn't get like um, eye surgery or anything like that like you can now, LASIK or whatever. So we couldn't really do that. So yeah, that was the end of that. Like, and I probably look. Everybody says, "Oh, I could have been," or "I knew a guy in a basement that benched 7,000 pounds" or some bullshit like that. But I think I had the pedigree to maybe give it a good crack back then. But and I still box. I still box 2 or 3 times a week now. I have a coach, and I just go do some pad work. The odd time I might step in and test me bollocks every now and again and swing for the rafters. But now, this face, I think if it got hit too much more, it wouldn't look very very pretty. So I got away relatively unscathed. So then I kind of had a reputation of being able to handle myself, and yeah, I got like made. I think I was doing door work when I was 16, 17. I couldn't even drink in the fucking place, but I was either running the door, being second in command, or being a head doorman, that
Yeah.
type of shit. And then when I went to another city, I started doing that to pay for uni and stuff like that, and eventually I went in to do chemical and pharmaceutical science, and I was kind of at the time as well studying a little bit of anatomy and physiology because I was getting bored after the first 2 years of chemical and pharmaceutical science, so I was doing anatomy, physiology, and then moving into sports massage and neuromuscular therapy work and things like that. So I didn't quite finish the chemical and pharmaceutical science. I did, I think, 3.5 years of that. I got really fucking bored because at the time I was doing a lot of powerlifting, and I suppose my night life, so to speak, I ran security teams and had kind of a company doing that, as well as working for other clubs on the side as well. So it paid very well, and at the time, obviously as a student you weren't heavily taxed or anything like that, so it was very lucrative. And a lot of my mates were cage fighters or boxers or stuff like that, so we had a good team. I could trust people, and it was good money, and it was a good lifestyle. You met nice women, had a lot of fun, consensual fun. So I will caveat that now before I get fucking me too'd or some shit. But yeah, it was good lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, and I enjoyed it. I had a relatively hedonistic lifestyle, so to speak, back then. And yeah, I think because I did work experience, and I was working on, I think, heart stents at the time. It was just tremendously fucking boring, and the people around me were more into talking about titrate and shit, and I was more into like,
Yeah.
let's go out, let's have fun, you know what I mean? And I had won a lot of titles in powerlifting. I was good at it too, and I enjoyed it. And I thought, well, what can I do to monetize this, or what will I do? And I got to a point in powerlifting where I started getting so heavy. I got up to, I think I was well over. I was, a couple of times close to 120, and I kind of had to start kind of dieting that down, because back then I had access to like sports doctors and stuff. They would, a lot of my friends are doing sports science and different types of things like that, so we would kind of monitor different things just for our own kind of analogies and stuff like that. And even though I wasn't taking steroids at that time, I eventually did as I got more into bodybuilding. But in my early 20s, I think it was just very taboo back then. It wasn't really talked about. I think the first time it was talked about to me was when I was like 23 or some shit, and I was like, dude, do you realize I do chemical and pharmaceutical science? And they're like, no. Like,
Well,
it
did you?
wasn't. Go on.
So just jumping in, did you have sort of hypotheses and your own anecdotal evidence outside of your studies that were way ahead of the sort of actual literature then? So did you have things that you thought
Yeah,
were anecdotally,
yeah,
and the textbook just hadn't kept up with that or caught up with that by that stage?
yeah, 100%. And some of it right, some of it wrong. Definitely. What I did was eventually I got into having my own personal training studio along with another guy. He kind of opened it up. I came in on it, and I started up kind of Alpha Nutrition at that stage in my early 20s. I had been working with MHP and Gaspari, kind of just bringing stuff into the country, selling it to other gyms because I liked what they were doing. It was around the time of some super, we call it Super Dump 250, because obviously when you took it, you fucking had a dump. But I mean, the stuff was rocket fuel, and then there was Sizon, and there was, do you know what I mean? There was stuff like that, and I was working with MHP, and Dark Matter
Yeah.
was kind of the big thing they had then, and I think it was Track. And I went over to the Arnold and met with those people and stuff, and seen could we get, I guess just being a cocky little shit, was like, oh well, can I get the whole of Ireland exclusive deal, and just chancing my arm. Like, the way I looked at it is nothing ventured, nothing gained. I was a big dude, I didn't give
Yeah.
a fuck, and if people said no, do you know what I mean?
That's
I
fine.
kind of always had that kind of, I wouldn't say lone wolf pursuit, but just did things on my own and got a kick out of it, and was
Yeah.
quite happy in my own company. So yeah, like once I started working with a lot of different kind of athletes, because when I was doing the kind of personal training side, it was much more lucrative back then. Just for the simple, I guess it was a lot different back then. So I would work with high end clients. I would work with companies and go in and talk to CEOs and tell them how I could enhance their lifestyle and change different things and different parameters. And a few of them came to me at the time with wanting to do triathlons and stuff like that. So like at that time when I was kind of more into it, I I was doing a little bit of work with bodybuilding.com because I'd become athlete of the month. Um, One of my exes sent in
Wow.
pictures of me, and they voted me as athlete of the month back then when I was like 24, 25 or some shit like that. And yeah, just kind of, I started kind of writing on the forums, doing a lot of stuff with that, and kind of that was a big deal back then because like I remember the day that I was voted that, the next day I remember I got like a shit ton of like 300 or 400 emails, and I was like, what the fuck? So it was a big kind of deal back then, but that led on to different things, like eventually working with Cellucor and different things like that. So, but at the time I was kind of, with Alpha Nutrition, I was kind of focusing on getting the best possible products to the guys I was working with, and kind of, I guess, working on different elements and different things that I thought were of fruition at the time. You know what I mean? So yeah, there was some evidence, some real world evidence, some different things. My thoughts on kind of, I more ventured towards like ketogenic dieting for a lot of these long distance athletes, just for the simple fact they were tremendously out of shape. They were hitting walls. They couldn't eat the amount of carbohydrates they needed to get in. So I would look for more caloric dense type of food. And because I had access to some of the guys on the bodybuilding forums, bodybuilding.com, there was a variety of different people on there, not just bodybuilders. And that was a great thing. And I think it was much more cohesive, whereas a lot of times sports now tend to separate themselves into very definitive things, and there doesn't seem to be as much crossover, which I think is lost in the kind of,
Yeah.
because I think there's so much information out there that 90% of it is dog shit and so anecdotal, and so like trying to make out the world in which you live in is over analyzed to the point of we know more than you, but do we really? And a lot of the times, even with some of the stuff, it's like mitigating side effects, not getting to the root cause. But because we know what to mitigate it, we know more than you. And I think that's a very dangerous avenue to be going down, especially with bodybuilding, for instance, and even some of the other sports.
I remember seeing the MHP marketing with Victor Martinez on there, and
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
was that was about the same time, I suspect. But wasn't all that stuff just full of
yeah.
sugar? Looking back, yeah.
So I believe so. The Super Dump
BSN, I remember
250
buying the
are the
BSN.
yeah.
Go
Well,
on.
that had, I think the main thing with that had sodium bicarbonate in it, hence why it popped the top off. But that was supposedly for acidity regulation and stuff like that, for pH balance in it. But the dark matter I thought was very smart because it had like an impact gel in it. So obviously when you shook it, it kind of turned to a gel. There was some cyclic dextrin, I believe. There was an onset of that. They called it high molecular weight carbohydrate at the time. And then that was mixed with some sort of dextrose. There was some amino acids in there, and I believe a bit of creatine nitrate. I think, man, you're talking back 20 years, bro. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm just off the top of my head. But I remember like at the time I had made something before this came out of something similar, but it was a little bit more. It was just kind of what was available at the time. You kind of. I tried to research everything to the nth degree and then try and make something that was beneficial to what I thought would be for a chosen athlete at the time, whether it be rehydration, and that was something even I suppose going to today with when we came out with a hydration product. Like I hadn't ever, thought about bringing a hydration product for myself, but because I was building the gym here, building it out, and you know, I was looking for a hydration product, and none of them really had sodium in it, and I found that fascinating because I think as
Mm.
the most abundant electrolyte that you lose, why had no? And it's not me calling out any companies. Like I don't think our company is better than anyone else's. All I want for Alpha is to be spoken that we make really good products, and in the spectrum where we live in the UK, that we're in the top five of most things that come out, and that's really all I want for the product. I would never, you'll never hear me slate a company or anything else. But if I see something that, oh well, that's not there, I'm going to make that myself. And that was why like a hydration product came out, was just with sodium. Now a few of them have it out now, but I think we were the first kind of in that spectrum, in the bodybuilding spectrum, to bring out something with sodium in it. And I just thought, why isn't this in there? Maybe it's because of taste factor, and we did put a high amount in there. And obviously it's something we're even going to bring it further in the next rendition of it, which yeah, I think it's just you see little. The thing is, nobody's really reinventing the wheel anymore. It's more about like you've got extra stickers and you're putting bits and pieces in there, and if you can kind of figure a way out how to make something better with the existing stuff that you have, then that's the kick I get out of it. Like it's like using nootropics to make a stim product more powerful with less stims and more nootropics. How can we do that? A balancing act between everything. How to use four different ingredients to upregulate themselves and then hit very hard. Whereas like I think sometimes some things on panels, because of the vasoconstriction of certain things and the vasodilation, I think some people just aren't adding that up, and it's like, well, if you've got I call it the Mr. Burns, syndrome, where you're trying to get everything through a door at once, and they're all struggling to get through, and nothing really hits, and people go, "Oh, that was shit." Well, it's not shit if you maybe took two of those ingredients out or something like that, and maybe
Yeah.
dialed it back a little bit. I think sometimes products are sacrificed for oversaturation on a label, so it looks really good, and sometimes that's not always the benefit of a product.
Well, that was I. So full disclaimer, I'm not really a seasoned pre-workout taker. I'm a bit of a coffee snob, so I've always just opted for a black coffee. But recently, I've been trying a few different pre-workouts, and I put a poll up on my story saying which one should I try, and Dark Side was highly recommended. I was chatting to a few people about it, and I said I'm just looking at the panel, and there's less caffeine than another pre-workout. And they said it's not the amount of caffeine, it's how it's delivered. So I've got. I mean, I took Dark
Sorry,
Side this
just breaking
morning
up on you there a
before
little bit there,
for a
mate.
session today, and it hits different, for lack of a better pun, for lack of a better phrase, because of the nootropics in there. So yeah, it's that's what put Alpha Neon on the map for me, and I've recommended it to a few friends, and I think you're quite right in saying that it's just correctly dosed. It's not overdosed. Do you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, I think for some people it's definitely not a beginner pre-workout. It's called Dark Side Onslaught, and there's a head of my dog's head cut off on it, like, you know what I mean. So it's not called Teddy Bear's fucking picnic. And I think if you haven't taken pre-workouts before, don't start with that. We have other products that start out with that, like, So I think I spent a lot of time doing stuff because I'll be honest with you, I like hard hitting pre's, you know what I mean? And with the rules and regulations we're given, this is what we have to do, and I get a kick out of that. Like, I get a kick out of what we can do with what we're given, and I think it's a balancing act sometimes. And don't get me wrong, there's some great companies out there, like I respect a lot of the people in the industry. I talk to some of them, and I don't tend to hang out with a lot of people in the industry just because I think a lot of my friends are mainly fighters and boxers and different types of things like that. And obviously, I have a gym and I meet some bodybuilders and stuff, but my main majority of my friends are just different types of people. But I respect anybody that comes in the industry and makes money out of stuff. I think fair fucks to you, man. Like, and everybody who stays there and different things like that. And when people ask me about a product, they're like, "What do you think of this?" I go, "What do you think of it? Do you like it?" "Yeah." "Well, then keep using it." And they're amazed that I don't want to like upsell my shit or slate another company. I'll never do that, because for me that's a sign of weakness, and I never tend to really use anybody else's products unless the person gives it to me themselves. And it's not out of arrogance, it's nothing to do with that. It's just to do with the fact that I don't want to look at other people's stuff and be influenced by it. I want to kind of follow my own path in what I'm doing. And sometimes I get that right and sometimes I'll get that wrong. But for the most part, I just want to follow what I'm doing and just not be a hater. If
yeah.
somebody says, "Oh, it's this, that, and the other," I'm like, "Yeah, it's great. If you like that and it works for you, like, I would love if I took a normal pre and got, was like, "Oh, this is amazing." I'd be like, "Sweet as a nut. Cost me a fiver, great." You know what I mean? Like, but that's just not the way it is for me. And as I said, I've probably been taking pre-workouts for well over 20 years plus, so, and I think back in the day we were spoiled. Like, I think we started with like Ultimate Orange and shit like that. So I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that'd blow a hole
3D.
through a wall, so yeah, like, and that's just the way it is. Like, and as I said, I had a lot of adventures along my way working with different companies, and eventually just decided, fuck it, I'll just set up my own, because I was sick of either building up other people's companies or helping them restart them or do stuff like that and just not getting paid enough, to be honest with you. And that was really the reason why. Like, don't get me wrong, with Cellucor, I had a fucking amazing time. They paid me really well, but I was more kind of just running Europe and distributing through Europe, and I made a lot of money, but they went in a different direction with stuff. But they're still a great company. Like, when I see people slating stuff, I'm like, "Yeah, but your first pre-workout was C4, like." And once you, I guess, become more popular, sometimes things have to be mainstreamed. And don't tell me, if you weren't in that position and someone said, "Right, you can turn over 300 million a year or a million a year, what are you going to do?" That's the
Yeah.
reality of it. Like, you can still make some hardcore stuff within there, but I mean, their parameters have changed and they want to sell to everybody, and people have to sometimes understand that. But like if someone said to me, "What's a pre-workout to take?" I'd be like, probably C4, ABE, something like that. Maybe start with that, and like, if you get great results out of that, fuck it. Like, brilliant. Use that. Like, I don't see where the hate sometimes is. I get it. Sometimes it's tongue in cheek, but I mean, like, just, like, everybody has to start somewhere. You don't walk in the gym and start deadlifting 600 fucking pounds. If you do, fair fucking play to you, but I didn't. And,
No.
that's the reality of it. So I think everybody should start somewhere. And I think the main thing I think people should focus on more than anything is, if they're starting with supplements, is start with the building blocks, i.e., protein powder. You know, if you want to start with that, that's probably the most efficacious thing. The problem is you get no kind of immediate reaction. You're not itching your face off with some beta alanine in there. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes they don't see the effects of that immediately, so it's not really that psychological, thing. And do you need a pre-workout to train? Fuck no, but I love training on pre-workouts, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna still fucking take them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that's the reality
I
of it.
really resonate with. Sorry, I really resonate with a few things that you said there. People say to me when we started, we had a few people that brought out similar products, and people would say, "Oh, what do you think about product that's imitated you?" And I would say, I have no thoughts on them at all. You know,
Mm.
I'm not going to we're not going to elevate our brand by bringing other people down or whatever. We just focus on our lane, and if
Mm.
someone wants to copy us, that's fine. That's great. And we had something last year where we brought out a product, and we got a lot of comments saying, "Oh, you've copied another brand," and we didn't copy the other brand. It just so happens that they look the same and do the same thing, and it's just two great
Mm.
ideas that are very very similar. And I actually got
Mm.
invited to what was it, a Discord. I got invited to a Discord with this group of people and this business owner in there. And the first thing I said was, "Your product is absolutely sick. Everyone should go and buy your product. Don't buy mine. Buy that one, because that one is absolutely sick. But it was 3 times the
Mm.
price." And the guy basically messaged me privately and said, "Oh, I was expecting you to come on and hate and defend your product and all this stuff." And I said, "Why would I do that? Your product is absolutely gorgeous. As someone who trains and has respect for gym equipment business owners, your product is absolutely sick."
Mhm.
So you're quite right in saying, people say, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And the market is big enough for everyone, in my opinion. And you
Mhm.
don't have to put people down in order to elevate your brand. That's always been my stance on it. Um,
Yeah, I will interject with one point. I think when people, the joint product came along because I couldn't find a joint product with the things I wanted in it, and I was using them multiple sources, and then I just went to my manufacturer and like, look, I want to make this. Can we do a sample? So we got a sample done, and we were doing a sample together, and then tasted great, and I was like, fuck it, I think this is awesome. And it's the same with the morning product. Like those were all the things I was taking for a year plus. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just getting bored of mixing this shit every morning. I got way better things to do. And I'm not a morning person. I'm a complete bastard in the morning. I fucking hate life. I just want to I just look to the side, hope my woman doesn't want to kill me, and then I gotta bring my dogs for a fucking piss, and I gotta take a piss myself, and then just start my day. And a lot of the time I just want
yeah,
to fall on the floor and die. So that is the reality of it. So I just got bored mixing like aloe vera juice and apple, orange juice and or fucking lemon juice and fucking glutamine. I was like, fuck this. I'll just make a powder of this. So that's a lot of the things come conceptually from that and what I believe in myself. Because I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you're a snake oil salesman and all this bollocks." I'm like, well, if you don't want our products, don't fucking take them. Do you know? If you don't like
yeah,
me, then fuck you. Like that's a you problem, not a me problem.
yeah,
And that's just the way it is. Like I think I'm for me, I try for me it's like treat others how you want to be treated. And I suppose Newton's law as well. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So for me, I'm very like that. And I try and turn the other cheek as best I can, but I'm not always the best man at that. I ain't gonna lie, because I grew up a very certain way. It's like you respect people until they disrespect you, and then you go do something about it. And like I try not to, because I just couldn't be fucked half the time. And as I've got a bit older, I've tried to relax that side of me a little bit, because you're just building an ego that's kind of false. But also, you sometimes have to stand on what you believe in too, and just not let people walk all over you. And I think sometimes people take kindness for weakness, and people have done a lot of that sometimes with me. Sometimes they get checked and realize, look, he's nice because he likes you, not because he's just a pussy. And I think some people have to realize that my brand is called Alpha Neon, not fucking Beta Neon, and there's a reason for that. And I like people to be treat. I like to treat everyone with respect. And I think everybody deserves respect. I ain't your God and I ain't your mother, so I ain't here to judge you. But like, if you want me to judge you and you act a certain way, I fucking will. But like, I think with the industry, we should all. The pie is big enough for everyone. So the fact that people have to rip each other off and stuff, I think that's shit. I really, really do. Like sometimes it's very, very hard, and if it's a one ingredient product, you can't rip someone off by doing glutamine. You know what I mean, or some shit like that. But if a panel looks almost identical to what you're doing, I just think, wow, fuck me, pink. Especially if you know the person. I think that just But then the
And
good thing is then
what else are you working
these
on?
people.
What do you want to bring out next? Or what do you think? What gap in the market have you sort of
Um,
stuff that you can say?
I don't know, is there really that much? I have a couple of things on the pipeline. The main one, I guess, we're doing at the moment. We're making a slightly better version of the hydration product, I feel. The main reason I'm bringing that down to 30 servings and probably selling at a lower price point, just because I think people want multiple flavors. So I'm making that a little bit better. Like the sole sodium source will be from Himalayan pink sea salt, so that'll be raised, obviously. So there'll be a little bit with that. We are bringing out a dark side V2, which was the original one, which was the 50 serving one that put us, I guess, on the map. Um, God, that sounds awful fucking cheesy, doesn't it? But like that's kind of
50
what we
serving
we were known
pre-workout.
for. Yeah, so the original one was the orange one that we came out with. It was a 50 serving single scoop. And it was just stimulants. So do you know what I mean? Like, and that's all it really was. It was like a Dodge Viper, Venom. It did one thing, went in a straight line very, very well. Or Dodge Viper, or Dodge Demon, or whatever. It did one thing and did it really well. If you expected it to do much more than that, then fuck me, what were you thinking? But it was kind of an ode to the ultra concentrate type of product. So like, since we kind of bought that, discontinued that for a little bit because I thought when I get some other ingredients that I feel would be good in that, I'll do that. And now is the time to bring out a Dark Side V2 because we have products that are now stackable with it, i.e. Pump to Fuck, um, maybe Maximum Carnage and stuff like that. Because the caffeine content, I'm not a massive fan of caffeine realistically on because you really need for performance levels you need a massively high dose, and obviously that goes into different avenues of oh fuck that's dangerous blah 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 blah. But if you look at the clinical data out there, it's probably over a gram I believe, and I don't want to stick that fucking product. So I think I use caffeine as a carrier system for most stuff. Because I think if you overdo it on it, it does hit the central nervous system. Your body adapts to it. It makes people tired. It only really lasts for 15 minutes. So realistically, all I want caffeine to do is give me that window to shut the rest of the ingredients in, but also to give me that little kick, and that lasts for 15 minutes, and hopefully then the rest of the stuff starts to kick in, and that's your pre-workout. So that's kind of the impetus of everything. And I always found about if it's a ultra strong kind of pre, about 300 milligrams is thereabouts. Maybe like for our Maximum Carnage again, because there's a 24-gram serving in that. There's 100 for the 12-gram serve and there's 200 for the 24-gram. But again, it's not for any kind of real stimulant effect. It's just to shut those ingredients in because some of them are slow to uptake. So I think people read caffeine and go, oh fuck, 500 milligrams must be amazing. It's like, nah, fuck, probably not, mate. It only lasts for a certain period of time, and I think that's what, like, because people go to me, they'll look at like Onslaught and go, oh, it can't be very strong, mate. It's 300 milligrams of caffeine per top serve, and you're like, okay, take it and see what happens, mate. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's not really meant. What Onslaught is meant to do is make you want to train like a fucking animal. And that's what I've always tried to perfect, because I think sometimes if you're overstimulated, that's great, but then you have this massive crash. You can't eat your food, you can't do this, and I think you're always trying to like figure a way out on how to almost you're given this big massive block and it's cool and it'll go through a wall, but what else does it do? Can we fix that so it goes through that wall better? You know what I'm saying? It's just that's what I've always tried to do. So I'll always kind of slightly upgrade stuff where I can. If a better ingredient comes in, I'll do that. And yeah, so like that's coming out also because so many people have asked me, and look, I'm not a massive fan of cream of rice, I'm just not, but people have asked me to do a super float for our protein flavor in a cream of rice, so that's coming out. So I got a really
A
patented
super
great
what?
version
Sorry,
of cream of rice, so
a
that's
super
coming.
float.
Super 4. So it's our protein powder. Like people
Oh
love it.
yeah.
We've like it. Yeah, the people. It's a 4 blend protein, and the flavors are phenomenal. It's massively highly yielding in protein. We've done the label so it breaks it all down, telling you how much of each you absorb. So it's kind of educating people at the same time. And yeah, like most of our, I think per 35-gram scoop, there's depending on the flavor system between 28.1 to 28.5. I think 29.1 on the cotton candy. So depending on the flavor systems, obviously, has different, absorb different protein levels. So yeah, that is so they've asked us to do because our flavor systems are so good in that. And I'll be honest with you, the way that we did those was I feel very smart because so like. the New York cheesecake, the golden blondie is made for me, and chocolate peanut butter. They're made for me. So I love those flavors. So I knew once we got them right, then because if I hated them, if you give me carrot cake, which we have in one, I don't know what the fuck carrot cake. I hate carrot cake. I wouldn't fucking eat that. So if you gave it to me and go, that's the best carrot cake ever, I'd be like, phenomenal, brilliant. So every flavor was done for a very specific person. So if they love that flavor and that's their favorite thing, then I knew we hit the nail on the head. So that's how we always test those products. And because we have a gym full of people, we can always say, right, who loves milk chocolate or who loves this, and just hand it to them. And go, is that what you would? Is that like drinking that? And they're like, yes or no, or it's this or that, and then we just bring it off that. So that every flavor is made for someone specific. Like Neapolitan is made for my missus, strawberry cotton candy is made for Jono. So like I can tell you who these are made for, and I think that is a very good way of making it, because I think sometimes companies come out with stuff and they've handed me proteins and I was like, wow, that tastes like plastic. And
I'm gonna.
yeah, and I think
I did
because of
see
the
the.
original dark.
I did see your protein on
Sorry,
the website. I'm gonna pick up some of the. I didn't realize you had blondie flavor. I'm gonna try that. That sounds amazing. That sounds right up my
just
street,
send
mate.
me your address, mate. I'll send you down. So just send me your address, bro. It's fine. It's fine. Just shoot me, DM me your address. I'll get you some down. It's all good.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. But okay, yeah, wow, cool. And do you so the Super 4 protein that do you when would you take that? Would you take that both pre and post workout, or is it designed for post workout and pre bed, or what?
For me, like, I think the problem is, like, there's this analogy that, like, every single, like, look, so I'm 100 kilos now, I'm in my 40s. For me, am I going to eat every 2 hours? Am I? Fuck, I got shit to be doing, I got a life, I got stuff, so I'm not always going to do that. So I always want amino acids in my system, so that's a 4 blend protein of fast, medium, slow acting proteins. So the reason for that is, if you're leaving gaps in your nutrition, you still have a thing in that. And if you look at the research, and I have, like, I always try and research as much as I can, because I am I guess somebody called me an educated thug. So I like to stick my head in a book and figure out different things. And for me, a blended protein has always been much more efficacious than isolates or anything else. And I am very lactose intolerant, well, sensitive. I wouldn't say intolerant, sensitive. And that has, like, I've designed that protein for most, like, look, if you're massively lactose intolerant, yes, use an isolate, brilliant idea. But if you look at our grammage on that, there's nearly 10 grams of isolate in that product anyways. It's a very expensive product to make. It's much more satiating because it's slightly thicker, because of the micellar casein that's in there as well. And we've just left no stone unturned with that. I'm very proud of that product. And also, it's a lot different than what's out there. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just bring out something that was the norm, and maybe to my own detriment, because the margins on it are shit. But I mean, it's just, I'm proud of that product because it's something I've always used myself, always believed in, always looked out for. And that's kind of something that I've always kind of looked into a lot. And I just believe that having, at least if you're missing a meal, if there is a slow releasing protein in there, you're stopping that catabolism as much as you possibly can. And now, I'll be honest, I follow more of a ketogenic type of diet, and I have most of my carbohydrates around training times, as I've got older, because my metabolic rate just isn't the same. And to be honest, when I used to eat tremendous amount of carbohydrates, I used to just burn through them like a motherfucker. So because I probably had a slightly faster metabolic rate, so I find the fats much more satiating. For my for my breakfast, a lot of time I'll have 2 scoops of protein, 2 tablespoons of almond butter, and that's what I'll usually have. And then my next meal will probably be some avocados and some steak, and then my next meal, it'll be going into the pre-workouts, so there'll be a little bit of white rice, a little bit of this, chicken, the usual shit. And then intra-workouts, I'm a big believer in. We have, that's another one, iApocalypse. We have the V2 version of that coming out fairly soon as well. It's just I have a couple of projects. I work on other projects too. Behind closed doors, obviously I've signed NDA, so we can't really talk about them, but I've kind of got to finish off them and then solely concentrate on Alpha and some of the other projects I'm involved in as well. There is one project I can tell you about. We are doing a collaboration with Chosen Few, the clothing line, so we are bringing out a product with those and a couple of t-shirts with those, so that's coming out probably end of September time. So we were down at the Pump Club this weekend, so dishing out the first rendition of that. Everybody loved it. Flavor wise, it was great. So it's a very high dose product. It's not just some cookie cutter bullshit, and it's not just, oh, here's a product. We already have an alpha, and we've just stuck another label on it. It's not. It's a completely bespoke product for that venture. So it'll only be it'll only be available from our gym, from their gym, and on the concurrent website. So it'll be a very exclusive thing, and I think it's just fun to work with other companies in different kind of spectrums and stuff, and kind of see, learn from each other. And as I said, that's what we really want to do. And I'm good friends with Alfie, the owner. He's a great guy. And LA Gym is a cool gym. They have some old flex kit down there, which is fire. So if you're ever down in Bristol, definitely give it a heads up.
And you mentioned that just going back to the Super 4 protein, you yourself are lactose sensitive. Are you yourself sensitive to sweeteners at all? Do you find
No,
you get
not at all really. But I think what it is like, and I've always said this, and I remember my business partner in another brand, he mainly did a lot of stuff with Dr. Dickie Fuller, and her whole dissertation was in enzymatic profiling. And I've read a lot of her work, and I believe, like, look, if you're going to go into anaphylactic shock with like fucking licking a peanut and you're about to fucking die, or fish or some shit like that, that's a totally different thing. But I think if you're slightly sensitive to certain things, certain elements, I think a lot of it has to do with enzymatic profiling, i.e. you just don't have the enzymes to break that down, so you can supplement with them. I think it's just to try and find the balance of doing that. We did a product with another brand that I co-own ages ago, and something we'll probably reiterate soon enough, and anyone that kind of said they were allergic to these food or would have reactions, the minute we gave them those and about a half an hour, 3/4 an hour before, they could break it down. And I think it's the same with a lot of stuff that's out there. Again, that's to do with, like, I guess, real world kind of looking out and giving these type of things to my friends and having a look at them. But the sweeteners and stuff, no, I've never. The only thing I'm actually allergic to, and I wasn't until I got older in life, was eggs. They're the only things that kind of have a hold of me, so I really don't eat eggs. But I think it was the point when I used to bulk up, I used to blend 8 eggs. I would pasteurize them for 15 seconds in boiling water. I would crack 8 eggs. I would add 200 grams of oats. I would add 2 bananas and orange juice, and I drink about 4 of them a day, and then I would eat 4 meals on top of that a day. But that was the bulk up to like 120 odd kilos. But I mean, yeah, I at the end of the day, I think the sulfur that was coming out my arse really kept a lot of people away from me for a long time, so I eventually had to quit that diet. Probably wasn't the best for my heart health either, but there you go. Fuck it.
Everyone does bits daft things. Everyone does daft things growing up.
Yeah, and
go on.
Yeah, and it worked, but fuck it.
Yeah. Well, listen, Adrian, that was absolutely fascinating, mate. I think we could go on for another 2 hours, but I'll let you get back to your day. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for joining, and we'll stay in touch.
Of course, Ben. It was a pleasure. Cheers, mate.
Top man. Cheers.
Anytime, brother. Shoot me your address and I'll get some protein down to you.